I'd like to yield 4 minutes to a member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Roskam.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Ryan, for yielding. The gentlelady from California said that we needed to use agnostic scrutiny when we're evaluating these, and I think it's a little bit ambitious to have a room full of agnostics when we're all true believers. We all come in with an agenda. But even if you were going to take that admonition from Representative Pelosi and use agnostic scrutiny, an agnostic, Mr. Speaker, would look at the 4 things in the bill that we're contemplating today and would say, of all 4 of these things, surely these are not going to get caught up and swept away in tax reform. Surely it's not going to be how we're treating food charities. Surely it's not going to be how we're dealing with conservation easements. Surely it's not how we're treating IRA contributions to charities. And surely it's not trying to make private foundations and give them a sure footing. Surely these are the good things that we can all agree on based on agnostic scrutiny. Did you notice something, Mr. Speaker? There's nobody at the other side of the aisle who has stood up today and said, oh, the food charity thing, disaster. I'm against that. Or conservation easements, ridiculous. Look into that a little bit more. Or the IRA contributions, be careful there. Or private foundations, getting them all squared away, I'm against it. Not one person said that. So what was their argument? They wrapped themselves up in process. But by wrapping themselves up in process, they've opened themselves up to a criticism, because if we had gone a different route, if the chairman had taken a different path, they would have said, Chairman Ryan, why don't you start on things where there's bipartisan agreement? And here the chairman is bringing bills to the floor that have been enthusiastically, actively supported, Mr. Speaker, by our friends on the other side of the aisle. Why have they supported them? Because they're good ideas. This is where there's an incredible amount of ground. There's been some false arguments made on the other side that are just not that persuasive. And the argument went from the gentleman from Texas who created the impression that if you vote yes on this, then we're not going to be able to afford meat inspectors. We're not going to be able to have bridges, or a cure for cancer is somehow out of our reach. Spare me. Mr. Speaker, I'm reminded at times like this of a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1790 to a man named Charles Clay. And I'm going to give you 3 lines from this letter that I've committed to memory, because I think it deeply resonates where most Americans are when they look at our house today. Thomas Jefferson wrote this to Charles Clay. He said, "The ground of liberty is to be gained by inches. We must be content what we can get from time to time and eternally press forward for what is yet to get. It takes time to persuade men even to do what is for their own good." Mr. Speaker, that is Jefferson's admonition, no stranger to vision, no stranger to the big picture. As the author of the Declaration of Independence, we don't walk away from tax reform, the aspiration that we all have, but it is to say, look, if we're going to be agnostically scrutinizing these things, even an agnostic would say this ought not to be caught up in the crossfire. We ought to vote yes for this bill and move it along. I yield back.